So I've been doing these Emic trunk art teams. I know it's all the rage since everybody just finished the fusion. One of the most requested combinations I've been asked, and I've been asked for a few, is DeMytha and Emic trunk art. So I figured let's do that today. Welcome, I'm the DeadwoodJedi. This is going to be another Raid Shadow Legends video. We are on the test server today. We're bringing in DeMytha to work with Emic trunk art and build an unkillable team. And I think it's actually a really good team. It's a bit trickier the way I'm going to do it today because I'm going to try using a block debuff champion. And with the cooldown reduction from Emic, because DeMytha has to be in that slowest slot, this gets a little bit iffy, just so you know. Now, if you're wondering what team am I doing, I'm doing the slow beating trunk art team, which you can see behind me. It's a really good team. I like it a lot. I've done a couple of videos based off of this team. I think I've done one. Maybe I haven't done a second one on it. This will be it. But utilizing DeMytha and Emic makes this team work really nicely. And it allows me to use the block debuff champion with it, although it's really, really tricky. One of the things that I would recommend when using DeMytha is actually just using a cleanser. I think that makes just so much more sense. It's so much easier. The problem is that Emic does that turn meter reduction, the cooldown reduction, excuse me, and immediately after the slowest champion on your team goes. Well, because we only have a one-turn block debuff or block damage ability on DeMytha, she has to go in that slowest slot. But because the turn meter, the cooldown reduction happens right before that, any other champions skills are actually that are getting cooled down are probably going to happen the turn after that, right before the stun, not right before the affinity debuff. So if you want to use a champion like a Brogley or a Tatura Rhymehide, they don't really work because their block damage, block debuff ability isn't happening at the right time, or it's not allowed to be extended long enough, right? It can get really tricky. Thankfully, we have a champion that's an option in Sepulchre Sentinel. 4-turn duration on that block debuff ability. That will allow it to stay at the same time every time. So I actually can use that before the cooldown reduction from Emic, and it will stay there. And so that works really nicely, and then DeMytha is going to extend that. That's what we're doing today. That's the combination. That's the plan. Now, one of the things I would like to show you is what this looks like in the calculator really briefly, just so you guys have an understanding, an idea of what this team is going to look like. So here I have the team over here, right? I have all the champions listed out, speeds and all that jazz, so we can see how it works. They're pretty close to the right speeds anyway. I think it's more like that, but yeah, that's basically it. But the important part is this, the order in which it's happening, right? So what we have here, I'm just showing it on Void, but this should work for any affinity, right? Is Sepulchre's going to go fastest in this team. This is the trick. Fastest in this team. This is important. But block debuff, increased defense goes here, and then DeMytha extends the duration of that, so it covers everybody for the AoE and the stun, right? That's what we need. We need block debuff for both of those. The issue is the way the cooldowns happen. So remember, DeMytha's, all her skills are on 3-turn cooldown. So A2, we're going to open with that. That's prioritized. Then A3. Well, we got the cooldown after DeMytha went. So guess what's up next? The A2 again. That means the extension's happening a turn early. That's a problem. Then A3, right? So for the second stun, one, we're not unkillable for it. Second, you notice Sepulchre Sentinel using her skills at the same time, because 4-turn cooldown getting reduced makes a 3-turn cooldown happens at the same time, right? It's not getting extended here. And so it falls off half of our champions before the stun. And what I was running into was it was falling off just Emic trunk art. I had Sepulchre in the nut spot right here, right? Going right before trunk art in the nut spot. It's good, right? And DeMytha extends it on herself. So she's going to be covered, but not for Emic. Emic burns through it too quick. And so the debuff was falling off and he was getting stunned. So what did I have to do? I had Sepulchre Sentinel go first. That meant that buff is no longer good. It's going to fall off not just Emic, but also Fane and Nut, allowing them all to be stun targets. Now, Nut special because he gives himself an unkillable ability or a counterattack ability. And we all know the clan boss likes to avoid hitting people with increased defense, reflect damage, or counterattack. So if you're going to bring in a counterattack champion, Gotta keep that in mind. Also, Nut is not going to be a stun target either. So Emic or Fane is gonna be one of our targets for this. Now, if there is a champion that has a block debuff ability on a 4-turn cooldown without an increased defense buff, the only champion that's coming to mind, I think, is Scathix. I think he could do this. This wouldn't be as much of an issue because the clan boss doesn't care or even know if you have block debuff on or no block debuff. Doesn't factor in to his targeting system. So you could get away with Scathix, I think, in this role. But I wanted to use Sepulchre Sentinel. I want to give us increased defense because I wanted to see how hard Nut can hit in this type of team, right? Another request that I've been getting. So because of that, we had to go through some hoops to make this happen. That said, I think it works because this is the only turn where we're vulnerable. After that, we're affinity friendly, which we are all the way up until this point too. And we're blocking all the debuffs all the way through. So we're going to be totally fine all the way through. Block damage or unkillable, blocking the debuffs, and it works really nicely. So that's how it looks in the calculator. That's the team. Let's jump in the run. If you enjoyed today's video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss the next one. I suppose before we go in the run, I should show you the setup really quick. You can see Sepulchre. We're just going to open with that A2 ability. That's what we're going to do and run it. I do have Ragnar in, not Fane, just because, you know, who doesn't like Ragnar? Ragnar is kind of awesome. So we do need to prioritize that Gleam of Avarice and turn off that Gold Mad Frenzy. He's just one of my favorite champions. The Leech is a nice bonus too. The Mytha, we are going to prioritize the A2, not the A3. So we want to put that in the calculator as always with the Mytha. And then Gnut, we just want all the skills. We do want to make sure this A2 happens right before the first AoE. That's just going to be helpful for us. Just to make sure that we have counterattack for the AoE skills. That'll be great. And then Emic prioritize A3 and then the A2. And that's pretty much it. And if this works the way it should, we should have decreased defense and weaken up the full fight along with Leech, which, you know, take it or leave it, whatever. But Gnut should be getting some free counterattacks and we should be doing some good stuff. So let's jump in here as we start the run. Start off unkillable, right? We're just going to open with that. There goes the block debuff. And from Sepulchre, here comes the extension from DeadwoodJedi. Great. So far, so good. Block that. We're going to be able to block this one right here. We're going to be unkillable for this one hit. Right there. There goes the stun. Boom. Sepulchre Sentinel. Just like clockwork. Now the trick comes in the next stun. Because we need the next stun to go to Ragnar. Now, thankfully, Emic is void. Always neutral. Ragnar is void. Also always neutral. Which means that makes a really good combination. Bellinor is somebody else I might recommend for that role. Probably put him in the lead so you get the crit rate aura. But those two champions, both being neutral, means it doesn't matter the affinity. They'll be able to take the stun hit. If it goes to somebody else, that's fine. That's not going to actually hurt us, right? Sepulchre Sentinel's got block debuff on. So does DeadwoodJedi. Doesn't matter. Ragnar, vulnerable though, takes a stun, which is perfect. That means Emic's going to stay in sync. The rest of the team's going to stay in sync. We just miss one attack with Ragnar, and the rest of the time, we're good to go. So that's it. The team should work pretty smoothly here. There you go. Decrease defense and weaken. And look at that. That's like, what, 1.2 million damage from Nut? It's not too bad. That's not a bad result every so often, right? Not to mention he's getting counterattacks for like 200k. Right, his A2's doing 200k. He's got Giant Slayer on with all of his triple hits. He's pretty good. He's pretty good. Even if he's not doing crazy damage right there, we didn't have decreased defense up. Still gonna be pretty good. Now, one of the things with Ragnar, obviously, he's on a 3-turn cooldown. That A3 ability with the decreased defense and weaken. One of the advantages of having an unkillable team, though, is he cools himself down when he takes a lot of damage. So later on in the fight, we should be able to keep decreased defense and weaken up more consistently. I think that's going to be an important thing. It's also important to have Ragnar going before Nut, so when he does place those buffs, those debuffs, Nut can benefit from it, right? I had it set up the other way before, and he's doing like half the damage, so that's something to kind of keep in mind as you're progressing, as you're setting up your team, trying to make it work. Definitely have Ragnar go first, right? But yeah, that's the team. That's the squad. I think it's pretty darn good. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty happy with that squad. So we'll see how it does. Let's look at how I built the champions, and then we'll see the result at the end. Okay, so looking at the champs, we've got Knut here. Obviously, I have him built really well. A lot of crit damage, a lot of defense is kind of the idea. Just do as much damage as you can and stay within the speed ranges. That's all we got to do. 176 is going to fit in nicely and go after our next champion, Ragnar here. He's obviously giving us a decreased defense and weaken. I love his ability to be able to get cooldown when he gets hit. He works really well for unkillable teams, as long as we turn off that A2 ability of his. But 177 speed is going to work really nicely here with him as well. And then we've got, of course, Sepulchre Sentinel with the increased defense, with the crit damage, can hit decently well. Not a great damage dealer, but not terrible. But doing the job for us here, blocking the deepest and give us increased defense. So both him and Nut hit harder. So that's what's going on there. Then we've got DeMytha, of course, the legend, 174, slowest on the team. Crucial. Did build with crit rate and crit damage. Not a big hitter, only one attack skill, so never going to be a lot of damage for us. Just went a little over the top for the heck of it. And then very last, of course, Emic+Demytha going out that 147 speed, fastest in the team to get to that 4-3 ratio so we can stay in sync for the full fight. We did that. Not built, particularly well, but not terrible. Does have 100% crit rate and decent crit damage. There we go. Almost 56 million. Definitely a good result. Nut did 28 million almost. That's kind of insane, honestly, for a 1-1 ratio, like 1-1 ratio. That's insane. This guy's, I haven't used him really for clan boss yet at all, and he's a beast. I mean, an absolute monster. Obviously, he's a monster for Hydra, which is where everybody should be using him. Should not be using him for clan boss. You should be using him for Hydra. But if you use him for clan boss, outstanding damage champion. Good lord, that's that's insane numbers to me. But yeah, you can see obviously pretty good result. Team works. So very simply, this is a really good team. I think DeMytha and Emic do pair well together, but there obviously is some stuff that you have to adjust with. Again, I really do recommend just using Doom Priest as a cleanser. But you can use most any cleanser because the cleansing portion, at least affinity wise, the cleansing portion of the run happens after Emic does the cooldown. So even like a Bad El Khazar can work. Even if Bad El takes a stun, he'll still be able to cleanse the affinity at the same time every time. So that's actually a really nice thing. The hard part is without a Doom Priest, you can't really cleanse both the stun and affinity. Right? You have to pick and choose. And so in those situations, actually isn't the worst thing if somebody does take the stun. Even a DeMytha can take the stun. She has everything on the 3-turn cooldown. So you add 1 turn of delay based off the stun, it's not going to really affect any of her skills going forward, right? So that's not a bad option there. You just have to, the only person can't take the stun is Emic. So as long as you avoid Emic taking it, and you can, obviously you can do that a little bit with masteries, giving him steadfast mastery. You can also, just make sure he's last in the turn order. And if you have DeMytha, another void champion in there, perfect champion option to take the stun if that works out. So that's always an option for you. I think even in that case, if DeMytha takes the stun every time, which, like I said, you should be able to arrange. If she does that, as long as you don't have weak affinity champions, I think actually it stays in sync even a little bit better, right? because you don't, the cooldown isn't really chaining the skills up right off the bat. So it could actually work out really, really nicely if she does take the stun. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you bring in a cleanser like a Battle Khazar, actually a really, really good option for you. And Doom Priest is always fantastic. So anyway, pretty good team. I think a really good result. If you have DeMytha, if you have Emic, this is definitely a good beginner kind of team to build, right? If before you can build a Myth Fu or a, you know, what do you call it? The Myth Air team. You know, if you don't have the speeds for that quite yet, or the gear or the champions, this is a really good option to kind of get you started and get you moving into it. So anyway, that's all we got for today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and obviously if you want to build this team, go check it out on the website. That's got to be number one, I think. Number one in our hearts and our minds. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I got to get off this this old boob tube. Guys, thanks so much for watching. Till next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.